I just wanted to introduce everybody. Welcome. Today we have Dr. Tessie Madhu with us presenting with the PhD in Rural Development. Dr. Tessie Madhu is a social scientist and gender specialist, serving as the Director of Planning, Monitoring, and Evaluation at the National Root Crops Research Institute in Nigeria. And so today she's going to discuss her insights on Tricot trials of cassava and sweet potato that she helped conduct in Nigeria.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. I'm Tessie Madhu, and my topic is participatory crop evaluation, Tricot trials on cassava and sweet potato in Nigeria. This is my outline. We'll talk a bit of introduction about NRCRI, concept of Tricot, on-farm trials, cassava and sweet potato, why adopting innovative Tricot approach, why Tricot advocacy, Tricot promotion workshops and its effectiveness, outcome of the on-farm trial, and then finally, Nigeria released 2 cassava varieties using the innovative approach called Tricot. By way of introduction, I want to start by saying Nigeria's population growth is growing at an astronomical rate, and this requires there's so much demand for food to meet up the growing population. And our breeders target more resilient root and tuber crops such as cassava, sweet potatoes, in terms of disease resistance and yield to ensure food security and economic stability for households. For an accelerated and demand-driven breeding process, the Gender Social Division of the RTB project engaged the Tricot approach in eliciting farmers' prioritized threats. Permit me to introduce a little bit about where I come from. We're a National Root Crop Research Institute, Omodike, and we have the national mandate to research into the genetic improvement, production, processing, storage, and socioeconomics of root and tuber crops of economic importance. And that include yam, cassava, potato, sweet potato, taro, ginger, Hausa potato, sugar beet, risga, and amora. We also have a zonal mandate to reach into the entire farming systems of Southeast Agro-Ecological Zone to execute agricultural extension services in liaison with relevant federal and state agencies. The zones we cover Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Enugu, and Imo State. And we have the mission to provide the necessary environment for the production, processing, and marketing of value-added products of root and tuber crops towards national food security, income generation, gainful employment, and rapid industrial development. That is who we are, National Root Crop Research Institute. Then coming to concept of Tricot methodology, triadic comparison of technologies. The concept is farmer-centered approach for evaluating crop varieties. It also utilizes farmers' experiential knowledge and feedback, and also enhances relevance and adoption of new technology. And the aim of this is primarily to identify the preferred crop varieties and traits among farmers, processors, and consumers, as well as identify of new improved varieties within livelihood and localities with regards to plant qualities. Also to determine the variability within regions according to gender, age, socioeconomic status, or important local social groups. The Tricot study design and methodology, beautiful, very simple. First and foremost, you have to do the experimental design, where you have to determine what you want to do. And then what are the technology options? What are the technologies you want to take in, you want to move into the field or want to try out? And once you identify your technologies, with the help of ClimeUp, there's a randomization that takes place. And then we have packages, because we said triadic comparison of technologies, where 3 technologies are given to each farmer and they try it out. So package 1 is farmer 1, kind of. You have to, it's randomized by ClimeUp. And this is also, once that is done, you identify your farmers. The farmers are registered with the help of the ODK. And then you go to on-farm trials, where the farmers try out the different packages that are allocated to them. You have A, B, C there, and then followed by farmer observation and ranking. The farmer does this observation and ranking, and it's simple. The ranking is simple, best and worst. And this information is also imputed into the ODKs collect, which goes to the ClimeUp for overall analysis of the data collected. In this picture, you see the farmer here. He has the ABC. These are the packages we gave them. And we also encourage them to have a local, their local best to be planted also alongside with the 3 for comparison. Then what are the objectives of the on-farm trials? The major objective is to identify, validate, and promote superior crop varieties. Also to assess performance in terms of pest and disease resistance. Also to look at the yield potential and resilient genotypes, as well as marketability and the food quality of those varieties. For cassava, the scope of coverage and the participant selection of cassava farmers that participated in our trial in Nigeria. Nigeria is a very large country, so we considered first and foremost areas that predominantly grow cassava, predominantly processed cassava, and predominantly market cassava. So we identified the areas, and because it's a large area, we had to do a large coverage. So we identified 4 regions, 4 geopolitical regions of Nigeria. We have the Southwest, Oyo and Osun. We have the North Central, Benue. We have the Southeast, Imo and Abia. And we have the South-South, Akwa Ibom. And these 4 regions fall into 2 major agro-ecology zones. And those zones are we have the humid forest zone and we have the derived savanna zone. For our selection of participants to participate in the trials, first and foremost, what is important to us is to consider farmers who are involved fully in cassava production. And also we considered local social groups in localities where we operate to make sure that there's inclusivity. And also the migrants and non-migrants are also considered. In doing this, we have been able to develop a journal for our selection, and that journal is called the Gender Quality and Social Inclusive Guide. And we're also using a multi-stage sampling procedure. 10 farmers are purposefully selected in each community, led by a lead farmer. We had to, the farmers had to nominate lead farmers in their own areas, considering the leadership qualities of a particular individual to lead them so that they can do the trial and data collected accurately. For sweet potato, we also have a national coverage. And we also considered, just like cassava, we considered areas that predominantly cultivate sweet potato, market it, produce it. And we also have a spread in the 4 geopolitical zones as well. This one, we have the Southwest here. we have the North Central, we have the North Northwest, and we also have the Southeast, and we have Akwa Ibom. And for sweet potato, it's covered a larger area, especially the derived savanna area of Kaduna State. And for nomination of those to participate in the trial, we also considered exactly what we considered in cassava, farmers who are predominantly sweet potato producers, sweet potato sellers, and all that, to be part of the selection criteria. We also considered the minority group. We also considered those who are migrants also in any locality. And because we are trying to nominate candidates for variety release, we have to look into the rationale for candidate nomination from the Variety Release Council of Nigeria. And some of the criteria include that the varieties that we want to release must have a strong performance across regions. That is regions of the country, including the agro-ecological region. It must have key agronomic and food quality traits, and from on-station, multi-locational, and on-farm trials. So whether it is on-station, whether it's multi-locational, whether it's on-farm, it must fulfill the criteria, the number one criterion there. Then varieties must have consistently demonstrated high yield, adaptability, disease resistance, and favorable processing and industrial quality. Varieties must be well suited for market segment, focused on both processing and industrial application. So in setting out our trials, we must consider these things. We must put it into consideration, and also in nominating our candidates for release. Then cassava on-farm trial composition, the materials and method. We engage 120 farmers, and these are farmers, processors, and stem sellers. And we had 4 new clones that we wanted to try out, and 4 checks. Then it's an incomplete block design. Each plot is 5 meter by 6 meter. And plant population for each plot containing a particular variety, like variety A, has 30 stands per plot. Variety B has 30 stands per plot. C has the same number. And the traits that the farmers helped us to evaluate include agronomic traits. And under agronomic traits, the farmers also evaluated the sprouting, pest and disease tolerance, growth vigor, canopy formation, and branching. Under yield traits, root weight, root shape, root number, root size, and morphology. And under processing and post-harvest quality, ease of harvesting, ease of peeling, swelling during toasting, garri yield, garri quality, and eba quality. These are the cassava clones that we use, 4 new clones and 4 other ones. These are all checks. Then for sweet potato, we had 40 farmers, processors, and vine sellers, 3 new clones, 2 checks, and 1 local. And incomplete block design, same as this plot size is 3 meter by 3 meter. And for each plot, we had 30 stands. And the traits evaluated at the agronomic level, the traits were sprouting, pest and disease tolerance, canopy coverage, growth vigor. For yield, root weight, root number, root size, and morphology. Processing and post-harvest quality, ease of harvesting, yield, ease of peeling, quality of boiled and fried sweet potato. Basically, in Nigeria, we have other means of other products, but it's basically boiled and fried. Then, like I said, we had a Tricot lead farmers. The function of the lead farmer is to coordinate the other farmers under them by collecting information, the data that we require. And before we set them, we had a training for all the lead farmers. And this training is supposed to be for the evaluation and use of smartphones for data collection. And we developed a journal, which a handbook that we use in training. So we did some in-classroom training, and we also did on-field training, where the farmers were trained in the field on how to use smartphones to collect data. Then we have data collection stages for cassava, at which stage that the lead farmer will collect data from the farmers under the lead farmer. After the planting, we do 1 month after planting, data is collected, 3 months after planting, 6 months after planting, 9 months after planting, 12 months after planting. And at this 12th month is also the harvesting period. They also collect data from harvest and then processing, then intermediate food product. For cassava, the intermediate food product for us here is gari, the gari granules. Then the final food product is the eba. Then we also collected information from the eba is stored for about 24 hours and to also evaluate the quality after stored for 24 hours. Then for our sweet potato, the stages of evaluation for it, after the planting, there is data that is supposed to be collected at 7 days after planting, then 1 month after planting, 3 months after planting, 4 months after planting before harvest. And once you collect that 4 months before harvest, then you harvest, then we collect the data at harvest, the yield data and all that. Then we have the processing into food products that we also collect. For data on sweet potato is currently being cleaned up for analysis, so we don't have much of it here. Then we looked at why are we adopting innovative Tricot approach? Why go Tricot? Preferences for key traits at time points, because we are collecting, the farmers are collecting data at time point, and at each time point, they have their preferences already. They are beginning to have preferences for a variety. Then elicit new preferred traits. That helps. Regional segmentation, like you see in Nigeria, we spread our trials in 4 regions out of the 6 regions, and these 4 regions are the major cassava growing region or sweet potato region. Then we also, why for social and gender segmentation, overlay with climate data, improve food processing and food quality assessment, data integration. Most of our data are now integrated into the cassava base and the breed base. And it's also cost effective because this monitoring is done through mobile digital apps. And what are the lessons that we have learned all these years with Tricot, especially our pilot phase? There's so much social gender inclusivity in it. Inclusion of metric data from farmers' field to validate breeders' on-station evaluation. Traits prioritization, we've been able to identify farmers' traits prioritization and holistic evaluation of the tested advanced genotypes from field performance to food product and quality. All these things, all these are done by our farmers. Then why we Tricot advocacy is important that we do advocacy, because initially Tricot was not welcomed with 2 hands in Nigeria. So there was need to do a lot of advocacy and to create awareness and validate proofs of concept in countries that have adopted Tricot and its application. And we also did a lot of explanation of Tricot methods and how we do our selection, how we do our randomization of the packages, sharing with plackets, and also field layouts, trials, establishment, data collection, statistical analysis model, and data repository platform of ClimeUp. These are all the things we try to explain out during our advocacy. Then the benefits of this Tricot advocacy is that it has also helped because in shortening of varietal release duration, improve social economic impact of the crop users, enhance adoption and utilization of release varieties. People are now buying in of crop users' involvement in varietal release decision-making process. And it's now a collaborative one. The advocacy has also enabled the Variety Release Committee to buy into this methodology and also to encourage other commodity crops to go into Tricot as their on-farm methodology. And some of the Tricot the promotion workshop we had one in Ibadan where we engaged the Variety Release Committee. We also had one in Abuja that was also sponsored by, that was in November, that we did a lot of advocacy then. And then what are the outcomes? We had a field inspection by the Variety Release Council. They also came to inspect the fields and interview the farmers, the cassava farmers, and also the sweet potato farmers in the various regions. And then these are some of the harvest of the Tricot cassava trials we had. And I just want to look at this by plot and the evaluation of agronomic threats. We're only using this one for cassava. So the red arrows is pointing at two varieties that did significantly well in sprouting ability, in pest control, in disease resistance, in good plant type, in also yield assessment and root shape. So based on these two candidates that did well, these two candidates were nominated for release to Variety Release Committee. Data for sweet potato is currently on, and we're hoping that we release sweet potato varieties using Tricot in this 2025. So Nigeria released 2 cassava varieties using innovative approach. Did you candidates that were performed very well in the biplot were nominated and presented for to the Variety Release Committee, and the farmers gave the names. They are no longer P00, all those coded names. The first one they gave name was Biggie. The next one was Renewed Hope, and they gave these names based on their perception of the root yield, the morphology, the number of roots each one had, and also the food quality, and as well as the marketability. And the Renewed Hope, they say, is giving them a new hope, that this is cassava that is giving a new hope. The Biggie had astronomic high yield and high tubers, and that gave you that name. And we're happy to announce that in 2024, for the first time, Nigeria released 2 cassava varieties using innovative approach, Tricot. And the picture there is the cassava coordinator in Nigeria, Dr. Mrs. Favor Awa, displaying some of the food products. And the picture down are the team of cassava, the Tricot champions that participated in the meeting at the Release Committee meeting in Ibadan in 2024. I want to appreciate everybody here, particularly 1000 Farms, for the sponsorship, for the grants they made available to us to carry out this study. I also want to appreciate our team from IITA. We worked as a team and partners. I also want to appreciate everyone who helped us. So we're happy that we released the cassava 2 cassava varieties last year. We're really excited, and we're looking forward to releasing SweetPotato this year, 2025. Thank you, everyone.
How to analyze Tricot data using R. How do we find ANOVA and superior varieties? Please help me with the codes. So do you know much about the analysis in R, Tessie? Can you say much about that?
Sorry, can I take the question again? Can you repeat it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what we used, we all our data was sent to the CliMob, and CliMob was able to do the analysis for us. And that biplot I displayed was the biplot that we got from the Plunkett list model. So the biplot was able to analyze the information very well for us. And I don't know if I've stopped sharing. I would have done that more with it. But maybe David could get back to me later and we can discuss extensively on that aspect. I will appreciate that.
And also, I'd like to add.
And you know, David, we used best and worst. That's the way we rank best and worst, and that the CliMob does the collation and analysis for us.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sure David could get back to you personally, but just so everyone knows, there are resources available to help with the analysis, and one of them is to go to the community website. I'll show you the link again in just a moment. And there you can actually ask your technical questions, and that will be answered by the people that developed CliMob. So they can help you with a lot of the codes and working with R. And then the other thing I'd like to say about this.
David is asking my email. Could you drop it for him, please?
Sure, yeah, I can put that in the chat. Okay, it's in the chat. Benjamin has just put it in the chat.
Okay.
tessmadu@gmail.com.
Benjamin has just dropped it.
Yeah. And then one more thing quickly before I go on to the next question, because it has to do with R and CliMob, is that in our next webinar in 2 weeks, well, on March 4th, Tuesday, March 4th, we're going to have an update of CliMob software from the people that developed it. So that's really going to be interesting in terms of data analysis for anyone that would like to join us. You'll receive an invitation for that next week. So anyway, we'll move on to the second question then. Can you see it, Tessie? I'll just let you read it.
Okay, I'll go to Q&A.
You can read it out loud if you'd like, or I can.
It said, which criteria for lead farmer selection? Will it be possible to select technical, is it farmer, I don't know, find this work? Okay, I'm not sure the other word, FIR, I think is a typo error. How we select our lead farmers? We let the farmers select their lead farmers. Remember that in selecting farmers to participate, the farmers, we consider farmers that are conversant with the crop in question, not very highly knowledgeable with the crop, and also the ability to use the Android phone, because we also train them, and then ability to use the Android phone. So the farmers are selected by the farmers. The farmers know farmers within them that possess leadership quality. And when they nominate those farmers, then we train those farmers on how to collect data for us. So the other question he asked, will it be possible to select technical? I don't know what that is. So it's not very clear to me. I don't know, is it technical farmer or technical anything?
Yeah,
I don't know. But whoever the farmers, yeah.
Boubacar, if you'd like to talk, I've just unmuted you. You can ask that question.
Okay, that's good.
Hello.
I've unmuted him. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. So the question is about if it will be possible to replace the farmer by technician people to doing the work, the field agent.
The beauty of Tricot, because it's farmer centric, is farmer based. So bringing a technician to do the data collection has also in one way defeated the aim. And because the data is a very simple thing we do, best and worst, and you impute it in your system. So it's something that the farmers can do. And also bringing in a technician will also, because we said it's cost effective. When you now bring a technician, it's also going to cost money to move the technician, to pay the technician's travel allowance and all that. And that's why we identify, once they identify the farmers, we also help to train them. So it's a lot cheaper and more farmer-centered when we use farmers within their community. The scientist only goes there. We visit about 3 times or so at planting, at 9 months, and then at 12 months or so. So just to do that visit. So if you have a technician, it means the technician will go at every stage of data collection, and that is costing money. And they don't own it any longer. It's now a researcher work, a researcher-centric trial. Thank you. I don't know if I've explained that to you.
Yeah, I get you. I get the importance to select a farmer better and do the other farmers. So I'm wondering about as in our places, many of farmers are not so familiar with the tablet or cell phone. That is why I'm asking about. But as you say, it's also important to select because of cost saving. Thank you.
I know some farmers are also teachers in the villages. They also do other things, and they all use smartphones in the villages. I know. I don't know about your country, but I know here in Nigeria, a lot of farmers have basic knowledge. Most of them have secondary school education, so they can do that here. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. I've got a question from Hugo in the chat, and then I've got one from Edward after. So I don't know if you can see this one, Tessie, but Hugo asks, was there some resistance or skepticism about using Tricot trials at the beginning of the project? And if so, was it more from the side of the breeders or the farmers?
Definitely, there was so much skepticisms. Initially, they were not believing that farmers could generate the data they can use, especially the breeders. But we are working with breeders in the field, and the way we try to, reduce that skepticism is by integrating the breeders into the team. The breeders also go to the field with us, and they see what they are doing, and they have come to accept it. So it took quite a lot of advocacy. In my presentation, I talked about advocacy. We did a lot of advocacy with the scientists, with the breeders, with government, with Variety Release Committee, to be able to get to the level or the stage we are, that now they have accepted Tricot as on-farm methodology for the release of any variety in Nigeria. It wasn't an easy thing, but we persisted.
Seeing is believing, huh?
Yeah, seeing is believing, yeah. And we also invite farmers into the research institute for them to interact with them, for them to ask questions. Even in one of the pictures, you saw that the Variety Release Committee had to go to the field themselves to evaluate the Tricot and also ask questions, interact with the farmers. And after that, they were convinced that the information we're giving them were correct. And when we compared our data with the data from the breeders, and it was matching. So we were able to, what the farmers were telling us and what the breeders were getting from their own were at par. And then the names that the farmers gave, they now came up with that we will not be using codes again, that the farmers are the one naming the varieties based on what their concept of a particular variety.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's good. Great. Okay, next question is from Edward Carey, who asks if you can talk about the problem with the sweet potato data that needed cleaning.
Okay, when I say that the sweet potato needed cleaning, I mean we're still collating them. That's what I mean. But probably I didn't use a word that sounded well to him. If the data is being collated from our different locations, and the processing, the food quality, so they are all, we have not been able to completely analyze them. Yeah, that's what it means. That's what I mean by cleaning. I understand cleaning means you remove some and put some. No, that is not the case here.
Right. Okay.
We're still imputing our data into CliMob.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
I've got another question in the Q&A. It's from Amanu. Very good presentation. Please, did you ever experience missing data, and how did you overcome it?
Yes, sometimes that is inevitable, even in when you're doing quantitative data collection. Yeah, but on the whole, on the whole, it is quite minimal. The missing data is quite minimal because the farmers are owning the whole trial, and what we're asking them to assess is very simple: best and worst. So most times we don't have a lot of it, but CliMob is always took care of such missing data in the analysis, but usually they are not much. They are not much.
Okay. Thanks very much, Tessie.
You know, when you have missing data, when you are asking for too many things, here you're only asking for this particular variety, the growth, this thing, best and worst. What is it? You're just putting best or worst. So it's very simplified. Yeah. There's no complication at all. Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much for that answer. I think we've come to the end of the questions. I don't see any more, but if there are any more, please don't hesitate to type it in or raise your hand. There's a hand that's gone up. Let me just unmute Edward. Okay, go ahead, Edward. You can talk.
Yeah, hi, Tessie.
Hi, Ed Carey.
So I'm sometimes known as Ted.
Ted, yes. I know you as Ted.
I understand the thing about the cleaning up, because you have to put the trials from different places together, and if each one is set up as a separate trial, then putting them together may not automatically be done by CliMob. You may need some help from the team, I think, because we had the same experience. But now that I said that, I had another question. Oh yes, which I wanted to ask was, I didn't see you ask the farmers which did they prefer overall, you know? So what you had was an assessment of a number of traits. And so how did you come up with a sort of a final recommendation, or is it that was done sort of outside of CliMob? I mean, we had an attribute or whatever, a trait, a comparison, which was which do you prefer overall?
and or which is the best overall, something like that. Best, evaluation overall, best and worst, and then you come up with that, rather than this one is in terms of root shape, this one is in terms of this, this one is in terms of that. And then also I have one extra question if you have time, which is the question of quality assessment. Because if individual farmers are doing the quality assessment at the time of, harvest on their own field, then when you come to the quality assessment, it seems like it might be a whole separate activity. So is each individual farmer doing their whole input on making gari or making sweet potato fries or boiling sweet potato? I just have one additional point to add, which is that when we did quality assessment, we often did it like just in an open market. So we would do the frying and then use a Tricot test to let the farmers, the people who came to the market to do the Tricot evaluation, and we found it satisfactory. Thank you.
Okay, Ted, we had a whole lot of data there. The one I showcased was just the agronomic data. We have data on processing, we had data on harvesting, which I did not bring out. All those were put together before we were able to nominate the candidates for release. And also for the processing, we encourage the farmers to do the evaluation of the food quality together, so that the lead farmer is there to assess, group by group. They can divide them depending on the number under the lead farmer. We're supposed to do in a general thing, but we didn't go to the market to do that, where they chose a place, a common place where they do the processing together and data collected. So our data that I showcased was just only the agronomic data. Already the time was not even enough to finish. I was being cut short, so I had to rush all that. So we have extensive data on that, which we can share if you really want. When we finish, I know you're a sweet potato breeder, you'll be interested in that, and I'll be glad to share that with you, Ted.
Okay, that's great. You can contact Tessie by email for further information. I've got one hand up, and this will be the last question from Sanusi Mohammed. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations to the presenter. My question is, did you have any issues collecting quantitative data like yield, which maybe you didn't measure as which is higher, which is lower? When it comes to quantitative, did you measure the yield of either the cassava or the sweet potato, maybe in terms of kg per unit of the area used? Thank you.
Yes, we measured the yield. We have all that because, like I told you, the researchers had a staggered visitation, and the last visitation we did was at harvest, and we took the yield data. We were able to collect the yield data because the yield data is very important for the candidates who want to project for release. So we did that. We took the yield data.
Okay, any surprises on the yield data?
Yeah, surprises that we have is that some of the, like I didn't have time to talk about, a particular cassava stand had over 20 kg roots when it was weighed. Those were mind-blowing, and that particular one is the one they call Biggie. So as we were weighing it, they were screaming Biggie. Even in their local language, they were talking about how big, it is. So those were our rock. I know the big rock and the point of joy for the scientists that went to the field. Yeah.
Okay, lastly, for the information of members on this call, I'm also involved in running Tricot trial on millet, sorghum, and granite. And one major issue, I think, is estimating the yield, because the FS, the field agents, were measuring the yield based on different quantities. Some use mudu, some use kilos, some use many other measures. So we are having some issues on the quantitative data, and I want to learn how you are able to manage that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we went. The scientists were on ground for the yield, the harvest. That was the point. I told you at planting, we go to ensure there's purity, there's no mixture. And then at mid 9 months, we also go, and then harvesting so that we can take the yield data. Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Sanusi.
much. And thank you everyone for your really good questions. To remind you of the 1,000 Farm links that we have, our website, social media, and then our community website. And that's where you can find recordings to all of the webinars, plus other information, and you can ask questions there as well. So with that, I'd like to just say thank you very much to everyone for joining us. And thanks again, Tessie. It was really fantastic. And I look forward to seeing everybody in 2 weeks for the next webinar.